All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Webinar Wednesdays, wherever you guys are. Thank you for participating in today's webinar. And our topic for today is really exciting. I'm super excited to be here because we're sharing the results of our Employer Brand Strengths Report, which is really a combination of a lot of insights coming from across industries, across HR leaders, and it's just fun to see how the report has played out and the insights that have been shared. And I believe that this is something that you can truly take away a lot from in today's session. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. We'll jump straight into data. I'm a big data nerd, so for those who are data nerds too, you'll be excited about this. But for those who aren't, please bear with us. There's quite a bit of data that we're going to share, quite a bit of slides. And just please feel free to pick up what you think is relevant to you, to your company, or to your industry. Okay. So just some advice for everyone following us today. We're also live on Facebook. But for those using Zoom, I wanted to direct you to some guidelines as you use this particular platform in case it's your first time. So if you find the screen too small, please don't hesitate to just resize your screen. You can do that. There's also a Q&A button at the bottom. So anytime you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We'll be more than happy to just pick up the questions. And you can take screenshots, feel free to do so, but wanted to let you know that we will be sharing to you our speaker video and presentation slides after this webinar, 24 hours after, I believe. Okay, so if we're all set with that, I'm walking you through our 3 points, our agenda for today. This session is a first look at the findings for the 2020 Employer Brand Strengths Report. So the results here have never been shared to anyone. We haven't published our report. We will do so after this webinar as well. So we want to talk about 3 key things today. The first is the current state of employer branding. The second are gaps and opportunities for HR. I know that a lot of our participants today are in the HR field, so this should be of particular interest to you. And the last piece is employer branding priorities and investments in the now normal. So we don't call this the new normal already. We're saying this is the now normal, at least for a significant amount of time as we start to return to work. So what are the investments that HR leaders are making when it comes to adjusting to this new normal? All right, so just to introduce myself very quickly, my name is Ange Vera. I'm the CEO of TalentView. I lead the organization across 3 particular territories or areas. So that's Philippines, Malaysia, and Vietnam. And we do also have operations across the ASEAN region. So the focus of this report will be just that, across ASEAN. And I am a graduate of Employer Branding College. There is such a college in Australia with a level 1 employer brand leader and honor distinction. I'm also the author of a book called Rethink Recruitment, helping organizations shape their talent acquisition and talent attraction practices. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by our lead for talent attraction, Kate Dos Pueblos. So you see her on the screen, but she'll do her presentation slides in a bit after me. And she practically handles all our talent attraction accounts. There are a lot of things we're doing across social media, video production, multimedia production that Kate is primarily responsible for. And I'll let her introduce and share more about herself later on. All right, so on the part of TalentView, for those who are hearing about TalentView for the first time, we are an employer branding firm. We specialize across 3 key areas. The first is strategy. There are some companies that come to us and say, I'm really keen to start my employer brand, but I don't know how to lay down a strategy. So can you please help us? So that's the first. The second is design. So there are also organizations that say, I already have a strategy for my global team, but locally, I don't know how to execute it, or I need some help wearing that marketing hat. So in that sense, we've got a team of video producers, editors, multimedia designers, graphic designers that help HR and support them in that marketing piece. And the last and final piece, which is becoming more and more crucial today, is technology. So as we're helping shape the perception of our talent market and our employees, we really partner with the best technologies out there so that we can be more efficient in everything we do. So these are just some of the partners. We're not going to spend a lot of time here, but I'm sure that some of these logos stand out for you, or you may have seen or encountered them in some of the companies that you've been a part of. All right. So these are just some of the organizations that we serve across the region. You may be familiar with some logos, maybe within your industry, or maybe you can even see your company there. And so the perspective that we take, even as we present this report, is really looking at organizations that are mostly 250 or 500 people at the minimum and extend all the way to 20,000, 30,000 employees. All right, so we'll jump into the report. We surveyed 200 plus companies across the ASEAN region in the last 6 months, I believe, and across these industries. So outsourcing, FMCG, financial services, retail, all the way to engineering and manufacturing, public sector, and government. And our objective was simple. We wanted to understand the new HR landscape and share talent management trends that can guide companies when looking for direction on how to build their employer brand. So this report is quite special because it's happening in very uncertain times. So we've seen the responses evolve from the 2-3 years that we've been running this report and seeing the data trends. Okay, so to get some audience participation going, I'd like to run a few polls first and wanted to ask you this question. So you should be seeing the poll come up in your screen. Just some expectations. What are your expectations here? Why are you here? Please feel free to click what applies and click on submit. I'll give a few seconds for that. All right, let's see the responses. Okay, so there's the biggest chunk, half of the people in the group are involved in their company's employer brand initiatives. That's really great to see. And a third of us are HR leaders who want to understand the trends, adjust accordingly. And there's a few, about 15% in total, that are not in HR, but probably in a way involved in building the organization's culture and trying to adjust to the new normal or now normal today. All right, thank you very much for responding to that. Let's kick off with another poll. So there's another poll that I'd like to ask everybody. For those primarily that are involved in employer branding somehow, what's your current involvement? Please don't hesitate to check all that apply. So are you in recruitment marketing? Are you managing the analytics? Are you a functional leader? All right. So please submit your answers and we'll take a look. Let's look at the results now. Okay, still the bulk, and this is not surprising for us. It's really recruitment marketing, employee engagement. What's new here is brand comms. So we're seeing half the room say they're in brand communication, 39% planning and coordination. I'm very pleased to see people who are tracking employer brand metrics. So 1/3 roughly of the virtual room are now tracking employer branding metrics. And then we have our functional leaders, about 26%. Thank you guys for responding to this. All right, so let's jump into the results. So just a quick stat that we found specific to recruitment marketing. This one also surprised us. Despite the pandemic, majority of organizations still plan to recruit up to 500 employees in the next 6 months. And this is across, again, the ASEAN region. So it's just good to get a pulse of where people are in their hiring practices. So I'm now going to jump into our data points and share with you this first slide on quantity versus quality. So a lot of times we employ in recruitment different channels for sourcing. So what we asked people was, which of the following sources do you use to get candidates? And what are the most effective in getting the right talents? So on the left side is volume hires. So if you're looking for quantity, if you're looking for volume, it seems that job boards and employee referral programs are still key, are still the top sources for volume talents, right? And we're seeing that LinkedIn and Facebook, our social media channels, catching up 43%. And the rest, from job fairs, recruitment firms, all the way down to Instagram and Twitter, which I know we're not so much into, at least in this region, are taking a secondary priority. But when we look at the right side, which is now the quality sources for talent, we'll see the data shift a bit, where, of course, in terms of ranking, employee referral programs still number one. So I'll just say very quickly for this particular source that across the world, even the studies that we review, even other reports that we review, the top one source of companies for their best hires are always their employee referral programs. And I believe the reason for this is that people know who are the other people outside the company that can really fit. There's already that buy-in from employees that are bringing other people in. So for those that don't have yet a strong employee referral program, there's definitely something here that should be revisited. And then number two would be job boards, but you see it's like 52% versus 69% on quantity. And then number three is LinkedIn. Again, a little higher here, 51%. So if you take a look, I would say your top three still remain, but there's differences and disparities across the percentages. There's a huge gap in the usage of effectivity of Facebook as well, 20% for quality versus 41% for quantity. So that's something that, in a way, it's not just necessarily the channel, but how are we communicating on Facebook? What we've found or what we've learned from companies is mostly they're trying to do a one-size-fits-all, where, I'll just blast out, and our term here inside TANPU is post and pray. You just post and pray very hard that people will apply. So I guess Facebook, in a sense, is used very much like a job board still. That's why the effectivity or the quality that we're getting there is not all the time the best, right? Okay. Next, we ask the companies, we ask HR leaders, are you aware of your organization's competitors for talent? Who are your competitors? And 41% said, yes, we have adjusted our approach so that we can be competitive. But 60% or 59% rather, still have said either number one, yes, but we have not done anything about it. Or two, partially, we know who they are. We can see what they're posting. We can see their activity. And there's still yet 7% that said, not at all. We don't know who our competitors are. We asked a second question. Are you aware of the profiles of your target candidates? Who are you running after? Who are you trying to hire in your company? Where are you finding your talent and the right profiles? So half the respondents said, yes, we have adjusted our approach to reach our target talents. That's really good, and that's admirable. We're seeing these numbers come up every single year. So the more you know the talent that you're trying to attract, the more you can adjust your strategy and really get a zoom in approach and try to avoid the post and pray. And yet there are still others that say, yes, we know the profile, but we haven't really done anything about it. So that's 23% still, nearly 1/4 of everybody. And then 19% said, yeah, partially, and 5% said not at all. Okay, so what's the message here? We've put these two together. It's trying to understand the external market, but also trying to understand the people you're trying to attract into your organization. You need to solve these two sides in order to increase the effectiveness of your talent acquisition model. And the very first thing to recognize in that first row is that your competitors for talent aren't just the people or companies in your industry. You are looking for similar things. You're looking for good communication skills, good problem solving, good analytical skills. You can find these talents across different industries. So the recognition that your competition may not necessarily be in your industry is vital for you to redevelop that entire talent acquisition model. Okay. And the second piece, which is understanding your profiles. My question here to the 48%, those that have not adjusted, is have you crafted talent personas? Meaning, if you're looking for a marketing professional, do you know what schools you're successful at? Do you know what channels? Is it Instagram, Twitter, newspaper ads, Facebook, LinkedIn? Whatever these channels are, do you know how to reach them, how to engage them? What are their interests? What do they like to follow? What do they like to watch? So try to understand that. And if you can meld these two together, then it will really help in redefining that strategy for your employer brand. Okay, so answering key employer branding questions in the next few slides. We've asked some questions such as, has your company given attention and importance to employer branding? What are your organization's primary employer brand objectives? And who are involved in your employer branding strategy? So as you see the results here, it's also nice to take a pause and get some sort of personal reflection going in as far as your HR strategy is concerned across these three guide questions. Okay? So again, we have a Q&A button. Please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll be checking that later on. Okay, so let me share this stat first as we move on to our next few data points. 50% of organizations have yet to start their employer branding journey. So for us, there's half of companies, half of organizations that are still in a sense new to employer branding. And this validates our own personal experience when we meet with organizations and say, have you started your journey? Have you started to focus on your employer brand? And some of them even go as far as saying, what's that? I've never heard what employer branding is. So that education piece, that understanding can really help you map out across the priorities that you mentioned: brand communication, recruitment marketing, and employee engagement. So trying to establish that strategy across those three themes will also help you revamp your model. So we asked the question, which of the following best describes your primary employer brand objectives today? So I'll take a quick pause here as I sip coffee. It's the morning in Manila, just for everyone to try and take a look at the data. All right. Are you surprised? Are you shocked? Or is the feeling, okay, it's similar to us? So it's a bit more a feeling of relief for you because you are in the same boat. So 69% of our respondents actually said that the reason we do employer branding is still for hiring. We want to get the best talents on board. But a close second, and this one is very interesting for us, this is something that's also been climbing from previous years, is promoting employee engagement. So you're now using your employer brand to get people inside your company sold, continuously sold to the idea of working in your organization, working with your vision, working with the people in the company. So this is interesting to be seeing employer branding strongly connected to employee engagement. Half of the audience or respondents also said, we want to improve general awareness of our brand. Our products are known, our services are known, but our company is not known as an employer. So there's half the respondents that are saying we're using employer branding to help people become more aware of who we are as an employer or as a company, right? And close to that is employee retention. So this one is interesting because this one usually falls at the bottom, but now it's top 4, improving employee retention through employer branding. So helping shape that communication, that perception of who you are as an employer can help influence the mindsets of your employees to say, I'm in the right company, I want to be working here, and I want to be staying here. So retention is key. And the last one I'll take up is differentiating ourselves more effectively from our competitors for talent. So using employer branding so that you're not just one of the banks, you're not just one of the FMCGs, you're not just one of the BPOs, but really showcasing who you are as a company, what you stand for, and what kind of employees you want to attract. So just a key insight in case you're capturing the screen, we've left it here and I'll read it out. Your employer brand is not only about recruitment, it's also about retention and employee engagement. So consider this question. How did your organization treat its employees amidst the global health crisis? In this now normal, I believe this is extremely important because it can define your employer brand for years to come. And in fact, Mark Cuban said that. Mark Cuban from Shark Tank and the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, he was saying that how you treat your employees during this pandemic will define who you are for the next couple of years, even after all this is over. So be mindful of how we're communicating even in this crisis. All right. So we also asked the question, who are involved in your employer brand strategy? Who are involved in your employer brand strategy? 86% of people said HR. HR is leading the way. But we're very happy to see, and also quite surprised to see, corporate communications is taking a stronger involvement in employer branding as well as marketing. And this really speaks of how we're approaching our customers as well, where we know HR is driving it, we know HR is leading the way for employer branding, but the more functions you involve, the more buy-in you involve in the organization, the better it is for you also when it comes to support for budget, support for initiatives, resources. The more you can draw internal involvement, the stronger it will be for you down the line. And very interesting to note, and something that I'd like to send out as a message to everyone. 1/3 of respondents are now realizing that leadership involvement is key. We would say at Talent View, this is the biggest thing. If you can get your leaders on board to talk about your employer brand, to help in deciding what your employer brand should be like, you will have full support for all your initiatives, for all your analytics and projects down the line. So get leadership involved because in fact, they're also the ones who can talk about employer branding a lot. Who you are as an employer can really come from your leaders because they've been entrenched in the organization. They know the pulse of the people. They know how the business is run. So they can speak volumes of who you are as an organization and be authentic about it. So authenticity is key. And that's also primarily the reason why you need to get as much departments or functions involved in employer branding to be more authentic in your approach to the external market. All right. So 58% of recruiters also said they are increasingly using social to promote their employer brand and connect with talent in the COVID-19 period. Right. So this is an input from JobVite. And our data really supports this as well. So I'm now sharing external data with you on our social media metrics from We Are Social and Hootsuite, one of our partners. We've tagged those that are in the ASEAN region, but you're free to look at world data, global data, right? So let's start with this very unsurprising fun fact. For those who don't know, Philippines, the #1 country that uses social media each day in hours and minutes. So the Philippines, on average, age 16 to 64, spend 3 hours and 50 minutes on social media every single day. So that's that. I will leave it there, and I think everybody knows this. This is no surprise, and then this also speaks to my own personal experience of how much we are in social on a daily basis, right? So looking at the second country in the ASEAN region, Indonesia spends close to us 3 hours 18 minutes, followed by Malaysia 2 hours 55, Thailand 2 hours 49, Vietnam 2 hours 22, and Singapore 2 hours 17. So really, if you look at the data, roughly 2 to 3 hours is spent by this region on social media. The worldwide average is the white bar, 2 hours and 22, right? So my question to all the leaders in this room is, if we know this data, we know this to be true, maybe for even younger generations, the numbers are even more. If we know this to be true, what are we doing in recruitment, in employee engagement, in brand communications that is on social media, or that speaks to where our target audience is? Our audience is here. We already know it. This is a given. But how are we speaking to them and engaging them on a regular basis? Okay. Next data point. Again, no surprise, but just wanted to share with you the recent research. This is July 2020 research. Fixed internet connection speeds. Singapore leads the way, 208 Mbps, 208 megabytes per second. That's a lot compared to the stark contrast of Philippines and Indonesia, 23.7 and 21.3 respectively. So despite the fact that we're spending three hours or more on social media, we have one of the slowest internet speeds in the world. You again see the white bar. This is our worldwide average. So we are very well below the worldwide average. And again, if you put two and two together, somebody from our team, in fact, yesterday in our briefing raised that maybe that's why we spend so long on social media, because the images take long to download or the videos take too long to consume because of our internet speed. So, that's definitely a possibility, but something to take a look at when you're putting out content. Knowing that the speed is like this, what kind of content do you insist on putting out? Are you insisting on very long videos, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? It will take people forever to watch that if you're in this region, not Singapore, but the rest of the region, right? Because of the data speeds. So it has to be quick, bite-sized information, quick, bite-sized communication that can easily be downloaded and that people can see in the channels that they're comfortable to be using on social media. Right? Social media behaviors. 99% of the world use social networks or a messaging service for the past month. So if you're on Viber, Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, whatever platform that may be, the whole world is tuned into that already. Everyone's using chat apps, messenger apps. 88% actively engaged with or contributed to social media in the past month. So not only are people consuming data, people are engaging. People are liking, sharing, commenting. They've done some sort of behavior. So if your content doesn't elicit any form of engagement, you are no longer average. You are below average. Because 88% of the population, it's normal for them already to react to posts, to react to social media content. So if you're not getting the reactions you like, there is a challenge with the content that you're putting out. This is something that I would say you need to revisit. All right, average amount of time per day spent using social media, you've seen this earlier. So that's 2 hours, 22 minutes. And then you've also got average number of social media accounts per internet user. So this one's interesting. We don't realize it until the data's in our face, right? 8.8 social media accounts. So about 8 or 9. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. What else? There's a lot, right? I'm not gonna start to name them. I think I'm not average. Maybe I'm a little lower than average on this stat. But recognize this. There's about 8 or 9 accounts people have. Where are you on? And are you on the right channels? In other words, if you're going to create a target talent persona, are you reaching out to them in the channels that they're using? You're trying to do Twitter, but then you realize the talent you're trying to attract isn't on Twitter. So that's something for you to consider as you're creating your social media strategy too. And 40%, just the last data point, of internet users who use social media use it for work purposes. All right. So this one is a very clear opportunity. Despite the fact that everyone is now tuned into social media, only 40% of the global population use it for work. Silence, right? Like for me, there's so much opportunity here because it means that there's a lot of ways you can engage and communicate to your employees. There's a lot of ways that you can communicate and engage to your candidates that have not yet been tapped. So take a look at that and see how you can merge these social media trends and try to bring them slowly, ease your way in onto the work side of things. Okay, so also a data point from We Are Social and Hootsuite is brand research. What percentage of the population learn about brands through social media? So you want to buy a phone. Do you go to Twitter or Instagram or Facebook to review what these are, right? So what is it that's critical when you're trying to review a brand or trying to understand the reviews? Vietnam, Philippines, Indonesia, roughly a three-way tie. We all look at reviews. 60% of us look at reviews and try to research brands on social media. And then you've got Malaysia, 59% of their population, so more than half. Thailand, 56%, and Singapore, 38%. So when you look at your company also, be mindful that people are reviewing you. People are reviewing your company and trying to see what are the reviews, what are the comments. So there's a lot of effort that can be done for us to enable that brand research and for people to find information easily. So questions like, what's the recruitment process like? What steps do I have to take? Who are the people that will interview me? You can put all of that on social and try to be more engaging to candidates or to your existing employees when you're engaging them. All right. So I believe this is my last slide. And currently, Kate is now sharing her screen. We are transitioning to the social media stats and more statistics and data points on how companies are using social media and other technologies to build their employer brand. So over to you, Kate. Kate, I think there's no volume, so maybe it's on mute. You are on mute. There you go. Go for it.
All right. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Kate, and I've spearheaded the writing of the Employer Brand Strength Report since 2018. And I've also worked with notable organizations like ProLife UK, First Gen, Rubisco, in order to help them in their social media strategies for their employer brands. So what I'll be tackling in my next slides would be, what are organizations doing on social media and for social media? All right. So before we go on to the results or the data, let me share with you a poll will pop up for you to answer. Okay, so what social media platform is your company using to showcase your employer brand? So I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. All right. Okay. So the results is we have LinkedIn as the top social media platform. And then second would be Facebook. So these are also the platforms that Ange also mentioned in her previous slides, where companies are focusing their employer branding efforts. It's either to reach passive candidates or hire more qualified talents. Okay. All right, so let's look at what our report has found. So the top 5 social media platforms for the respondents would be the same. It's Facebook and LinkedIn. So with the social media consumption increase during community quarantine, most, if not all, organizations are really focusing their efforts on maintaining connection with their audience. And it's because, as we showed or presented in the We Are Social slides, they are more attentive or they spend more time on these channels. So you'll also notice that a lot of companies are also starting to use Instagram and YouTube to promote their employer brand. So the trend nowadays is that there are vlogs, videos, and photos that organizations produce or publish to share the stories of their essential employees and also to see or share with the audience the employee experience in action. Okay, so now let's look at what the objectives of organizations are to be on social media. Okay, so number 1 would be to promote job openings to a wider reach. Second would be to showcase the company culture and environment to a wider talent market. And the third would be to raise employer brand awareness. So a lot of people are on social media because social media is a powerful tool in really reaching talents that they're not tapping into yet. So it's because of the ads targeting feature of social media platforms. And when it comes to job openings, these ads targeting can easily target our market demographics. Like we can use the age, industry, job level, and even the interests or groups that these users or these talents are in. So this really serves true during our health crisis because the competition has just become tougher at this time. And then the second and third top brand objectives on social media would be to showcase culture and environment and to attract and to raise employer brand awareness. So before people apply or show interest in a company, they review and check a company's reputation. So that's how they other people perceive their company and other reasons for it. So one thing that organizations can do to attract these potential talents is to showcase their culture, their work environment, and employee experience. And then we can go back to the question that Ange also raised before in her previous slide. How did your organization treat its employees amidst the global health crisis? So this question should be answered by the objectives and the content that we're publishing on social media. Okay. And then with all these different objectives for our employer brand, we ask, do organizations have a clear strategy to achieve them? So we see that more or less half of the organizations that responded still do not have or still do not know how to reach the mentioned goals. So this is both a gap and an opportunity for organizations because everyone's on social media. And however, 1 out of 2 of them, out of the organizations, do not have a plan laid out. So it's very important on how we want to do with social media. And we want to be intentional and authentic in terms of our social media strategies, in terms of what we want to put out for our employer brand. So job seekers will be very critical on what we're doing right now during this crisis. And they will remember which employers rose to the occasion and how companies managed and led through the global health crisis. Okay, so we have a statistic here. So only 2 out of 10 companies align their social media content with the organization's EVPs. So what does this mean? So this means that EVPs are not still pervasive across the organizations. And we see that there is a gap in how organizations understand and use their EVPs. So although a huge number of respondents, that around 1 out of 3 companies responded that they have an established set of employer value propositions, some have yet to align and communicate these across their social media channels. However, this opportunity is for organizations so that they can build on and improve employer brand content on social media, especially right now that the talent market spending increased time on their social media platforms. So this is a great opportunity for you or other organizations to really craft your content and really compel or attract these talents and show them what your employer brand story is. All right. So we go to social media content types. We also want to know what types of content do organizations publish on social media to attract the talent audience. So as you can see, job ads with photos and videos and job ads with text only are still at the top of the content types that organizations do or publish on social media. And really, this is not something that's new because job ads are the easiest way to get candidates to notice you because it's direct, straightforward, and has clear call to action, that is to apply for the job opening. However, you'll see that compared to the 2019 results, there is an increase in 3 content types for social media at this time for 2020. So we have reports or articles about your company's CSR projects. We also have testimonials from employees, and we also have career tips. So there's a significant increase in there. So from traditional job listings in 2019, organizations have slowly shifted their content strategy to putting the people first or having a people-centric content strategy. So we have more organizations publish what they're doing for employee engagement, what they're doing to help their employees during this health crisis. Okay, so I'm showing you here now our sample work or what we've done for our clients right now for social media and for their employer branding. So we have one, ProLife UK. So for ProLife UK, we've done different types of topics. We have a mental health infographic, we have an appreciation post for health workers, and a self-care toolbox as a resource for employees and even for candidates. Another one would be for Ribisco. So they focused on their employee engagement while the virtual setup during this remote work. So they're sharing how they're keeping alive their culture and how their employees are engaged virtually through the Ribisco Kumustahan. The third would be First Gen. So First Gen really has great employees and have great employee testimonials that really talks about their stories and their experience in the company. So they talk about the value of growth mindset in the organization amidst the challenging times. And then we also have ANZ, which also gives out or showcases why employees are keeping an agile mindset while working from home. So these types of content have one goal in mind, and that is to put the people first in their content. So we want to see real employees and their stories on how they thrived in the company even during these difficult times. So more and more organizations are showing that how they're supporting their employees, candidates, and customers, and how they're also giving back to the community. Okay, so I will also share with you what are the content best practices in this time of COVID-19 or in this time of the health crisis. So number one, we should build connection by doing good and making people feel good. So this just points out to what I've shared with you in my sample slides or in my sample work, that we show how the company is doing good during this time of crisis. We show how we make people good through mental health tips, through learning and growth resources for our employees. And second would be, we should also demonstrate great leadership through guidance and reassurance. So in these times of crisis, people need guidance and reassurance that their leadership is able to handle the crisis. So in the content that we're publishing, or the messaging or tone of voice that we're doing for social media, we should lead with confidence and determination, but also with empathy and compassion. Lastly, my tip would be communicate proactively, consistently, and considerately. So these times require straightforward, open, and sincere communication. We don't want people to be feeling anxious or to be feeling worried about what's going on in the company or what's going to happen to them. So really tell stories and don't be afraid to be authentic and personal with your audience. All right. So considering that organizations have laid out objectives and planned their strategy, how do we make sure that you succeed? So we found out that even though social media is the #1 digital channel for promoting your employer brand, only 12% are prepared to succeed on social media. So this means that majority of companies still have areas to improve on in terms of building a strong social media presence, having a good content strategy to attract their talents, or interacting with their online audience. Of course, we want engagement when we lay out our employer brand strategy in social media, and also creating programs for a stronger social media presence or social media engagement. So that means that programs that we can share with our employees, because they're the best brand ambassadors of your organization. So these are just some points of reflection for you guys. So how do you set up yourself or your organization for social media success? So #1, your corporate brand, consumer brand, and employer brand could be differentiated in ways. So one question would be, does your company have dedicated social media accounts for talent acquisition purposes? #2, does your team structure support a sustainable, consistent, and engaging social media presence? So do you have people who plans and researches your content? Do you have designers that crafts your posts? Do you have marketers that would make sure that your employer brand content is seen by your target audience? Third would be, communication is key in giving talents a good candidate experience. So how often do you respond and engage with candidates on your social media accounts? Do you have a community manager? How often do you respond to application requests or application queries? #4 would be, do you have a program that encourages and equips your employees to share their experiences on social media? So as I've said, employees are best brand ambassadors for your brand because they experience the culture and work environment firsthand. So it's also good to encourage them to share their personal experiences or work stories to their network. Lastly, does your organization incorporate social media data to make informed decisions in hiring or to enhance your HR processes? So we also want to know if our efforts on social are helping us to move down candidates in the funnel. So we're posting content on social media, but how do we know, or is this content successful in getting candidates and getting applicants? Or down the funnel, are we actually hiring these followers converted to applicants? All right, so before I move on with my last few slides, let's have a poll. Okay, so the question is, what metrics do you track for your social media success? So you can tick off multiple answers or multiple options. All right. Okay, so we have the results. Okay, so the top social media metrics that you're tracking right now would be number of followers, number of applicants, and engagement rate. So 2 out of 3 of these success metrics would be social media metrics. So these are more of the awareness and engagement metrics that you will track on social media. And the second would be, or the third, top 3 would be number of applicants. So that's 69%. So it's good that you're also tracking HR metrics because of course, we want to connect our social media efforts to also our HR metrics or our HR success. So let's take a look at the results of our report on what are the top 10 social media metrics that organizations are tracking right now. So it's the same. It's the same as the people here in the room. So it's number of followers, number of applicants, and engagement rate. So only 11% of the respondents say that these metrics are clear, and strong, and majority have partial to no measurement of tracking the social media success. And most common metrics used to define these social media success are actually social media metrics and HR metrics. So you'll notice that these are a mix of success metrics that we're tracking for brand awareness, top of the funnel, and also for HR metrics, which are number of applicants, quality of hire, or cost per hire. And these are good metrics that you should be tracking. And it's an important thing here is that you utilize the data that you collect on social media to improve or strengthen your processes in HR or in recruitment. So knowing these numbers, knowing how many followers are you getting per month, or knowing how many applicants are you getting from these content posts will really support you in proving to your company that your social media efforts are worthwhile and that social media has a return on investment. So after all, social media, so your social media efforts really put or translate into your employer brand and also translate to the business success. So we have to keep in mind that we have the content, but we also have to back it up with numbers so that we know that we are successful. Okay, so I'm gonna give another poll. And this would be, I think, my last topic. So what tools and technologies have you used to adjust the new virtual setup of HR? So options here would be video interviews, online testing, applicant tracking system, onboarding tools, and employee collaboration tools. All right. Okay, so we can see now that almost 80% or 77% of the people here in the room are using already video interviews for tools as they're in their new virtual setup. And also we have online testing coming into second place. So let's look at what's the top one tool and technology that HR is using right now. Okay, so the top 5 tools for virtual HR. So we asked, what tools and technologies have you used to adjust to the new virtual setup of HR? So number 1 still is video interviews. So although face-to-face interviews is the hallmark for a candidate's hiring journey, and it's not feasible at the moment, that's why we have video interviews. And team huddles and onboarding activities could also be events that employees could look forward to in their day-to-day work. But we're putting this aside and we replace it with employee collaboration tools or online onboarding tools. So knowing that the health crisis has disrupted the way of work for everyone, we have these tools and technologies to help us course through our employer branding journey and our recruitment experience for our candidates. So we keep this all into our minds, and as we power through the new world of work, my final note would be, connection is the key to navigate through the now normal. So may it be through the content or the stories that we're publishing on social media, or may it be through the tools and technologies that we use to connect with our employees and candidates. So that would be my last slide. And I'll turn this to Ange for the wrapping up our report.
Oh, sorry. There you go. Can you guys hear me now? Yeah? Okay. So in the last stat, I was just saying that it's really interesting because I saw that employee collaboration and onboarding also shot up in terms of percentage after video interviews. And I think the reason for that is this is what we call forced digital disruption. We really are forced here, right? Even if we said that we didn't want to or we're not yet ready, this entire situation has really forced everyone to push the boundaries of how far they can take digital transformation. And in a way, it's a struggle, but in a way, it's also good because we realize that there's really a lot of things we can do online. And there's a lot that we can do to help our employees, even if they're not in their physical work environment. Okay, so top 5 tools for virtual HR just discussed by Kate. So I'm just going to quickly answer some questions that were raised. We have Kyril Azrul from Malaysia. Thank you for joining us today. He asked, hi Ange, what do you reckon about campus engagement partnering? Will that be helpful for employer branding of an organization? Absolutely. I believe that if you're the type of organization that's hiring for a particular demographic, especially graduates or early or young professionals, it would be good for you to plant those seeds early on, even from the time that they have not yet graduated. And we see this a lot with organizations, right? Where they're partnering with campus or universities, even if they don't have any hiring, just so they can maintain awareness. And once graduates start to get work experience, they can then reach out. And that's not going to be the first time that they reached out. They already had prior connection when they were doing campus activities. So definitely, campus partnering will be helpful to you as you hire for particular demographics. Now, that's going to be, I would say, a unique situation because companies cannot really go on campus at the moment to showcase their employer brand. So this will now all transform into that social media or digital channel, but still partnering with universities, partnering with schools will be helpful to target specific demographics. So there's another question from Beatrice Sityon. Should employees use their personal accounts to share employer brand content? And is that in a way representing the company, right? So whatever the stance of the company is. So thanks for your question, Beatrice, and thanks for joining us for the webinar. So, when people use their personal accounts, it really more is like an employer brand ambassador feel. What that means is they're not speaking on behalf of the company. They shouldn't be. But what they're saying is that they support the stance of the company and that they're happy to share if ever the post is information or job openings. Any person that uses their personal account to share company information or company job openings means they're proud of that, means that they're happy that their company is taking a stand across certain issues. And I believe that's how personal accounts should be used. HR should never use their own personal account to be the company account. You should always have that identity separate because you also don't want to run into the dangers of when some people from your HR team resign and they were the ones representing your HR activities or employer brand. You'll have to start from scratch. So always set separate identities for your official company pages as well as the personal side. But yes, definitely any individual, any employee that shares company information, that goes a long way to show that employees support the brand of their company or the stance of their company across certain issues. So thank you again for that question. And we're now going to move in to just the last set of data points that I wanted to share. Employer branding investments in the now normal. So we said earlier that we've been doing this report for a couple of years now, and we picked up data from last year. We asked the question, across these talent sources, how do you expect your overall budget to change because of the ongoing situation? So in 2019, so just a caution, what I'm showing you right now is 2019. So in 2019, employee referral program is still a given. It's still the most important. People are constantly increasing their budgets to beef up their employee referral program, which sits at the top one spot, right? 52% said they will increase, 44% said the budget will stay the same, and only 4% will decrease budget. Something to note, on 2019, a lot of the physical interactions were invested in. Campus partnerships, 53% were increasing their budget, or 40% were making their budget steady. And then job and career fairs, 45% and 44% increased and stayed the same respectively. So that's a whopping, a whopping number where everyone's just really trying to increase the physical connections. But now in 2020, and let me show you that, the focus has shifted to digital experiences. So all of a sudden, you now have LinkedIn and Facebook with 34% and 49% on LinkedIn increasing and keeping their budgets as is. And on Facebook, 33% increasing their budget and 53% staying the same, right? Of course, again, employee referral program sits at top one, even in 2020. And I'd like to point this out. Even in 2020, 52% of our respondents will increase their budgets for the employee referral program. So this is just going to show where the direction of investments is taking place and where you can sort of anchor these data points to your own strategy and try to see, okay, why are these companies constantly investing on digital experiences and on the referral program? If you put two and two together, it simply is they're now using their employees' social media networks to reach out to their employees' connections and try to tap into key talent that their employees recommend, right? So think about that. Instead of reaching out to a total stranger, why don't you use your team members who already know the culture, who already know the company, to help look for talent for you, to be like recruiters for you, and to find talent that sort of fits more and understands the organization more because these are their natural connections. So put these data points together and try to see how you can revamp your entire strategy for recruitment marketing, for employee engagement, and for brand communication. All right, so I'll wait a bit in case there are other questions. This is actually our last data point slide. So if you had any questions for this slide or for the others, please let us know. We'll be happy to wait for you. And if not, there are some final notes that we're going to share. Okay, so as you're typing your questions, if you have any, we wanted to talk through the top takeaways. The first one, and there are just three. There are just three. If you forget everything we presented, there are just three takeaways here. The very first one for us is collaboration is absolutely necessary. Work with marketing, work with corp comms, work with leadership, whatever functions you think are needed to help you understand your talents, understand your talent market, and strengthen your employer brand. So a caveat here, we're not really singling out just marketing or corp comms or leadership. If you're hiring, for example, a lot of engineers, I would suggest that you talk to your existing engineers, involve them in the development of your employer brand, because they're the ones that are in a way your target profile or target persona. So the more you understand them, the more you can also communicate to external talent. But at the end of the day, collaboration is key. The next one, content rules. So this has a double meaning. Content rules meaning there are content rules you should follow. Kate was sharing earlier content about job posts that are more interactive, or maybe content that showcases your career tips or company information instead of just everyday posting your job openings. So there are content rules that you should imbibe and start to integrate in your team to get better results, just like the analytics that were shared. But the second meaning is that content rules. And what that means is that nothing beats content. If you have quality content, if you're showcasing your employer brand, you're showcasing your leadership, you're showcasing the values that are important during this crisis, you're going to win this talent war, this engagement war, and you're gonna crush all the statistics or all the, I'd say, metrics that you said you will present to your leadership team. So content rules, absolutely necessary. Craft your content right and win this entire thing, right? And the third is connection is key. So connecting to bullet number 2, which is content rules. When you share content that connects with your audience, you're sincere and you're taking a more proactive approach during this time of crisis, it's easier to establish that connection, whether that's with your talent market or with your employees. So aim to make that connection. Don't aim to fill your target number of posts just by the end of the month. Aim to make that connection with your audience. Aim to make that connection with your team members, especially now that everyone is in an extended workplace, which means that they're not really working in their physical office, their physical space. They are extended. They're working remotely, either in their homes or in a coffee shop somewhere isolated, right? So connection will always be key, and people will remember you if you've made that connection to them. So these are our top takeaways here. Any other questions? At this point, I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A aside from what's been asked earlier. So I will proceed with some final notes, and we can continue this conversation in our digital channels. So first thing, we will truly, truly appreciate if you can share with us how we did today. If the insights were helpful, if you found this webinar Wednesday to be valuable to you, please let us know. There is a poll that will come up, and we would be happy to take your feedback and anonymously take it, improve on it, and apply it to our next webinars. And in exchange for your feedback, of course, once our employer brand strengths report is published, that's going to happen in possibly 1 to 2 weeks, you will be getting advanced copies of this report. All right. So I'll give a few minutes. Please let us know how you did and take some time to answer the feedback that's popping up in your screen. So I also want to take this time as you're answering to thank Kate for joining me today, to our Talent Leadership Academy who's helped organize this entire webinar and all of our webinar Wednesdays, and to our data analytics team to analyze and crunch all the numbers across the ASEAN data set. And just everything that we've shared in this report is credit to our data analytics team. So thank you very much, guys, and thank you everyone for the support in putting all of this together. Okay, so webinar resources, just letting you know as well, we will be sharing our entire deck to you. So please expect that in your email. We'll also be sharing with you a link for the webinar recording once that's out. That will also be available on our website and our channels. I'm sharing with you the QR codes for Kate and myself. So if you'd like to ask us any specific questions, just use your phone camera, point it to the QR code, and immediately it will connect you to our LinkedIn pages. So please don't hesitate to connect with us and continue that conversation online if you have any questions that you want to ask us. All right. Of course, on the Talent View side, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you need help with your employer branding strategy, design, or technology. We'll be happy to sit down with you, digital and virtual, in a virtual version, to just talk you through some of the things that we've been up to last couple of months. So talentview.asia, or email us at learning@talentview.asia, or visit our LinkedIn page. All right, so with that, thank you very much, everyone, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you again. Thank you.